aggressive mental animals, and I've gone through a little delay because of computer upgrade, and then the upgrade failed for my computer, so it took a little bit long to fix it. But also some of the audio got deleted for episode 2, so I'll be redoing that, but I'll be making it much better. So I haven't really lost much, but it's things going to be set back a little bit, and I have another big project. Actually, this is one of the big projects that I had worked on actually 2 years ago, even before this podcast. I was going to upload on YouTube, and so I'm doing that today. I have another project coming up, so I'm going to keep it a secret, but this is actually one of the secret ones, so you'll be hearing this today. And before I begin the natural law presentation, I'm making this a video and podcast episode, so I advise you, if you're on the podcast, to watch the video for added visuals, but it's not required, because I'll be scribing the images, and you can visualize these images in your head for the images in this presentation. And I have to ask you all, how many of you think the world is fine just the way it is? All this information today that I present will always exist and always has existed. Some of this information may make you even uncomfortable, but only for a short time. It will empower you once you understand it, and you'll be glad you heard it. I present this information because I care about humanity, and I want to see people become happy, free, and loving beings. You should focus on the presentation, not the way I sound or how exactly I present it. And it is okay to feel upset from this information, but make sure you just don't understand this information to be untrue because it makes you feel upset. This presentation is called Natural Law Simplified. It's how to be a better person and make the world a better place. It's presented by me, Gage Vogt of Next Level Thinking, and this is heavily based off Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar, which is much more in detail, and also it is much, much better. I would definitely recommend going, after watching and reading this and listening, going over to Mark Passio's YouTube channel and watching his Natural Law Seminar. Anyways, teachability is... One thing you have to understand is teachability. A person's teachability is how they're able to learn something being taught by somebody else. Think of your parents or teachers. How well are they able to learn and understand what they're teaching? It is important to listen to this information without accepting it as true or denying it as false. You should consider the places you get your information. Many groups, schools, churches, TV shows, and other informational and educational and media sources may be lying to you, and you must find out what is true on your own. And I have a picture of a woman teaching. Do not look at this information from the perspective of money, religion, politics, mainstream science, or politics requirements. Many people may say that they want something for themselves, their family, and others, but they do not know how to get it. Things and events do not have magic, and you must find out the way to get what you want done. So there's a question marks and checklist, because people wonder how to get things done, but they won't do what is required. Knowledge is required to make change. People lack the knowledge to create the changes they want in their life, or they ignore it. Change is impossible without knowledge. And by representing knowledge, I used a light bulb. Occult knowledge. Occult means hidden. Much of the information in the world is hidden. Think of your friends and family secrets as a secret recipe. That is a simple example of occult knowledge. And I represented this by the triangle in the dollar bill, which is common occult symbolism called the Eye of Providence. Knowledge is separated into two parts. Knowledge of the self and of the world. Knowledge of how the human body works is called physiology, and knowledge of the human brain is called psychology. Knowledge of the invisible laws that apply everywhere and all times, such as gravity or karma, is called natural law and is part of occult knowledge. Occult knowledge is not well known because those with it can control those who do not have it, so they make sure to hide it. So those who are evil with occult knowledge can trick others. Think of a time when someone tricked or scammed you into buying something or doing something for them in return for nothing. This is the most occulted information on earth. If everyone knew this knowledge, there would be no violence or evil in the world. And it is this. You can do whatever you want to do as long as you don't hurt others. This is called natural law, or at least moral natural law. What is the difference between nescience and ignorance? Nescience is not a commonly heard word, but it should be understood. Nescience is to not know something because the information was not presented. You were not presented the information on this presentation so far, so you are nescient of natural law unless you understood it from another source, of course. Ignorance. To not know because you ignore information. If you ignore this information, you're ignorant for not knowing it, since it was presented to you. And the masses of humanity are best represented as being ignorant, at least in the Western world, because we have access to all this knowledge, and we have so many books and websites and articles you can read on understand natural law and how the universe and the world operates and what's going on. So most people choose to ignore it. So I'm showing a room of sleeping people because it accurately describes that people are just simply ignoring what is going on, even though it's right in front of them. And you might be wondering why the world seems to be in a prison, essentially, in many aspects. I'm not saying in all, but and the way to get out of this prison, and the prison of the earth essentially is to have the key, and the key is natural law. If we wish to be prosperous and to be healthy and to get along with each other and be harmonious, the key is natural law. And in order to get out, we have to understand, well, how do we get out, which is the problem-solving aspect. And how do you solve a problem? To recognize that there is a problem and to not deny it. Recognize the reason the problem happened. What is the cause of this problem? Think of what causes someone to be hurt from injury. You must make a diagnosis to find out why the problem happened, which is called causes. Knowledge is required to fix the problem, and actions are required. Even more importantly, problems simply do not fix themselves, most of the time. Truth versus perception. Truth is not able to be decided by people. 1 + 1 = 2 is always true, not because someone said it, because it is based in reality. It is what happened in the past and what is going on now. It is set in stone, and I saw truth in carved stone. Perception is how we sense things. One of our senses is sight, which many have issues with. People who need glasses to see well have a hard time seeing things the way they do, so they have to wear them in order to correctly perceive the world. Perception isn't reality. The world is not blurry, but that is the way this person's eyes incorrectly see it. Me and others' job is to put the glasses on for ourselves and others to see the world for what it really is, and it shows someone holding glasses, and then the surrounding areas look blurry. The lenses are showing the world how it really is, which is much more clear. Travis Walton said, I've come to realize the biggest problem anywhere is that people's perceptions of reality are what they want and do not want to be true. The natural law definition. Natural means based in nature. It is true and not made by man. Law. A condition that is in effect and cannot be changed. The difference between discovery and belief. This person does not believe in gravity. Does that mean he will not fall? No, he will still fall, unfortunately. It shows a man who is about to fall off of a cliff. Your beliefs do not matter regarding natural law, such as gravity. You do not have to believe in gravity. You can discover it to find out if it's true. It's as simple as jumping in the air and finding out you don't fly off into space. It shows a man jumping from 2 cliffs. He might have discovered gravity, but, that is one way to discover gravity. Maybe not the safest way, but it is a way. There are 2 ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true, and the other is just to refuse to accept what is true, which is by Soren Kierkegaard. Consciousness in the brain. Consciousness is the ability to be aware of yourself and your surroundings. This person is aware that if he doesn't step correctly, he will fall in the water, so he is careful. And that is what we must do. We must be careful and be aware of our surroundings. And this is what this man's doing. He is stepping across stones, and there's water in the way, and he has to be careful if he does not want to fall in the water. There are 3 expressions of consciousness: thought, emotion, and action. And they must be aligned in order to express consciousness, and also used simultaneously. There are 3 parts of the brain. The first is the reptilian complex. It is the reason you want to eat, sleep, and defend yourself from violence. There is also the system, or mammalian complex. It is the reason you feel emotions such as happiness, sadness, anger, guilt, and all other emotions, essentially. And then there's the neocortex, which means the new brain. It is the part of the brain responsible for higher thinking, such as think about what the purpose of life is. The animal with the most advanced neocortex is human beings. And this is the parts of the brain, as you can see, the color-coded system. The neocortex is the blue part, the limbic system is the green part, and the reptilian brain is the red part. So basically the outermost part of the brain is the neocortex, the middle part is the limbic system, and the first part that developed and the part at the lowest level is the reptilian brain. And this really shows it's also kind of symbolic too as well, to see that the higher order thinking parts of the brain are actually at physically the highest part of the head and the brain. Kind of interesting to think of. If the left brain is dominant, the R complex will take over and the person will become selfish and only care about surviving. Their personality will become about controlling others, and I showed a left part of a brain that is a circuit board, because I think people who think like this are very methodical, and they think in terms of numbers and systems, and they think like a computer essentially, which is why it shows circuits. And if the right brain is more dominant, the limbic system will take over, and the person will become ruled by their emotions. Their personality will make them believe anything they're told, and they will be easily controlled. And this is shown by painting and arts and different colors. So the left brain idea and ideology is based off randomness, and that is the universe is an accident. There is no God or creative force in the universe, no natural laws, and existence has no purpose but to continue to exist. This is what the false left brain, and if what happens if the left brain becomes dominant. And if the right brain becomes dominant, they believe in determinism, which is that God controls everything absolutely, and all events are planned out, free will doesn't exist, change is impossible, and actions are meaningless. Are people inherently good? Or, and I'm showing an angel, or are people inherently evil, and it shows a demon? Neither. People are not good or evil based on how they were born. They become the way they are because of their environment, such as parents, the physical world around them, how they were raised, their lifestyle and community, and so on. Simply put, human beings are programmable like a computer. Human nature is that human beings are programmable like computers. If a child has a bad childhood, is surrounded by a bad culture, has false beliefs, then they will have a bad life and effect on humanity. How a person behaves is based on these factors. Garbage in, garbage out. Quality in, quality out. It's like a machine. This is how reality is made. People have first the available information, which is the information that's available to the individuals of society. And then secondly, they have decision-making processes. This is how people decide how to act on what's society. They do it based off available information. And how people decide to make decisions, or how people decide to do things, is how people act in society, which is called wisdom, is in the third layer. And the fourth layer is reality, which is order or chaos. The condition is based on the quality of the individuals in the society, which is based off their wisdom, which is how they decide to act, which is based on their decisions, which is based off the available information. So there's like 4 steps, and it starts with available information. The information that people have available eventually will lead to how reality is, if it will be orderly or chaotic. Principles of natural law. Principles. What is the principle? Definition. First, leading, chief, most necessary. In other words, first things first. What is the most important? Natural law principles. Natural law has 7 main principles and a secret principle that unifies them. These principles are key to wisdom and are the requirement to empower humanity. The principles are, first, the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe was created in peoples, animals, cells, and atoms. Thoughts lead to creation of things and events. Thoughts create our existence and the quality of experience of humanity. Be responsible for what you create and what you think. The law of correspondence. What is above is also below, and what is below is also above, such as a tree and its roots look similar. The macrocosm, which is the large things such as a galaxy, and the macrocosm, small things like brain cells, reflect each other. The Power of 10 is a great video that shows this concept, and I definitely recommend watching if you wish to understand the law of correspondence. Here's another example. This shows the brain cell and the universe. Really interesting. Look how similar they look. This just proves the theory even more. This is the law of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything is always moving. Everything vibrates. The universe at all levels is pure vibratory energy, existing in different ways. Nothing is solid. Matter is energy in a state of vibration. And this is the law of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has a pair of opposites. Opposites are identical but different in degrees, such as temperature or light and dark. Cold is simply the lack of heat, and darkness is simply the lack of light. So they aren't really opposites. One is just, they're the same thing but in different amounts. The law of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its ups and downs. The pendulum swings is in everything. The measure of the swing to the left is the same as to the right. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, also known in physics as the law of inertia. The universe has a tendency to go a certain way. Think of roller coasters. It goes up and down. Everything has an ebb and flow. Cause and effect. And the best way to show this in a picture is a picture of a person knocking down dominoes that are small and then they become larger. And so a small little push by a person can have great effects. And as you can see in the picture, it starts off with small dominoes, but then it goes around in a circle, and then there's a large domino. So it shows that not only do our actions have effects that are not only immediate and you can see them, but they eventually can come back around us and hurt us much greater than we may have expected. Or it could help us in much greater as well, not just hurt, but in this picture it shows hurting. The actions that we do have unavoidable consequences. So you might say a mean word to someone, for example, and then later on you find out that that person, ended up maybe committing suicide or something horrific like that, or, did something really evil, like shot up a school or something, It can be that drastic, even it's little things. This way should always be, respectful to people and, who deserve it. Some people don't deserve it, and I understand that as well, but, you have to be aware and just be very conscious of what you do and understand that the law of cause and effect. And this is also called karmic law as well. There are 2 planes. The plane of causality, which is the mental world. This is what's happening in people's mind. This plane asks why something happened. If you change people's minds, they will change their actions, and then that will change reality. Then next is the plane of effects, which is the current physical world. What is going on in the present moment in the physical world, what has already occurred and cannot be changed. Because it has become the present and is what happened in the past, which is true, people are trapped in thinking about the plane of effects. People have a hard time looking about what causes problems that occur and only look at what actually has already happened. But people have to attack the cause of a problem, not the effects. It's like putting band-aids on a wound while you keep putting your hand on the stove. You need to stop putting your hand on the stove. Band-aids aren't going to help. And in the plane of causality, which is where all power to affect changes in the plane of causality. People need to focus on this plane to solve problems. And the plane affects no power to affect changes here. People are too focused on this plane to solve problems. And the next law is the law of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything is either masculine or feminine, either male or female. Here's a fun fact. For example, in Spanish, words are often either masculine, such as el padre, the father, or la madre, the mother, and also for objects as well, such as pizza, which is la pizza, which is kind of interesting. How pizza could be female, but that just shows the law of gender. And we need to combine our masculine and left brain traits with our feminine and right brain traits. The left and brain and masculine traits are logical, analytical, linear, and willpower. Right and feminine is creative, compassionate, holistic, and caring. The eighth principle is the lost principle, which is the generative principle, also known as care. The lost principle is care. It is what we care about daily and what drives our actions. This generates our reality and how great humanity individuals in it are. It is referenced to as the generative principle, and its color is represented by green. So I'm showing green coming out of someone's heart area, which is also known as the chakra system. And the heart is represented by the color green, actually not red. What we care about is what is put into the world. If people don't care about doing moral actions, then evil happens. If people do care about doing moral actions, then good happens. Most people do not care enough, even though they're desperate for change, to change their action. There are two spiritual currencies, time and attention. People spend time and pay attention. Those are two common sayings. Whatever we spend time and pay attention to, we will get something in return, like a trade. We need to use our time and focus on our attention on things that truly matter. If you input true information, you output goodness. This is true for individuals and the world. If you input false information, act on it, you get evil. This is true for individuals and the world as well. So how are we spending time, and what are we paying attention to? Are all we doing is doing hedonistic activities like drinking or playing games or watching football? And what are we paying attention to? Watching mainstream media and disempowering media and things that don't matter and fake events and hysteria? Or are we focusing on and paying attention to what's really going on? Or instead, are we doing things that really matter, such as doing research and helping others out and into educating people and learning how the world works? This is what we need to spend our time and pay attention to, and get our information from accurate sources instead of from inaccurate sources. Natural law, aka the laws of cause and effect. For every action, there is the equal and opposite action. The law of attraction. Energy goes what you pay attention to. As you think, feel, and act, so you shall be. Karma or moral law. You get back what you give out. Or the golden rule. Do things to others as you would like done unto you. This is what natural law can also be called. These four things. The law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, karma or moral law, and the golden rule. Natural law expression, or how it works. Natural law expression. We can see the workings of natural law in humanity through 5 expressions. They have positive and negative aspects to them. Overall, there are 10 natural law expressions. The first is the generative polarity, which is the expression, and is what we use to create. And the positive result is love, or consciousness. The positive aspect of the generative polarity is love. In natural law, love increases consciousness. Love is the force that helps us be open to truth and expand our awareness. The negative aspect of a generative polarity is fear. Fear is what decreases consciousness. Fear is the force which calls people to truth and shuts down our awareness. The initiating expression, or how it starts, is knowledge, or acceptance of truth. The positive aspect of the initiating expression is knowledge, or the acceptance of truth. Knowledge improves the quality of our life and our decision-making processes. And the negative initiating expression is ignorance, or the refusal of truth. The net aspect of initiating expression is ignorance, or the refusal of truth. Ignorance hurts our ability to make decisions in our life that are informed and in keeping with natural law. It's important to remember that ignorance is different from nescience. Nescience means to not know because information was available. Ignorance means not knowing even though the information was presented because it was refused and seen as nonsense. Thomas Jefferson said, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it accepts what never was and never will be. The only good is knowledge, and the only evil is ignorance." Socrates. Ignorance is the root cause of all evil. Since knowledge destroys ignorance, it is our job and moral duty to educate ourselves and all of humanity. And that is what I'm doing here. The initial expression the internal expression is what happens inside of us. And the positive result is sovereignty, or internal monarchy. The positive aspect of internal expression is sovereignty, or internal monarchy, which means one ruler, king, or queen within. Sovereignty means that the person unifies their thoughts, emotions, and actions, and does not live contradictory to their thoughts, emotions, and actions. And the negative is confusion or internal anarchy. The negative aspect of the internal expressions is confusion or internal anarchy, no ruler within. Confusion is when someone is controlled by fear and ignorance. Confusion is internal opposition or being torn apart in your mind. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions contradict each other. You can't make up your mind, or you don't know what to do or how to feel. The external expression, what happens in society, the positive aspect is freedom or external anarchy, or most people call freedom simply, really. The positive aspect of internal expression is freedom, or what is sometimes called external anarchy, which means no external rulers. Our goal should be to expand freedom for all living beings, human and animal. This can only result if we obey natural law. The negative expression is control, which is external monarchy, which means one ruler. Control leads to evil and destruction. It results when people oppose natural law. And the manifestation, which is the results we create, the positive aspect is order, which is good. The positive manifestation is order or good. Order represents everything we say we want. Order results only when there is justice and truth is accepted. Humanity must obey natural law. And the negative manifestation is chaos or evil. The negative manifestation is chaos or evil. Chaos is the opposite of what we say we want. Chaos is created when there is injustice. It is created when people ignore the truth. Chaos happens when humanity disobeys natural law. Right versus wrong. A deep understanding of morality. Principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong behavior lies at the very heart of natural law. What is right, it means that it's correct and based on truth. And what is wrong is incorrect and is not based on truth. What is right is moral and is in harmony with natural law, and what is wrong is immoral and in opposition to natural law. Actions do not result in harm to other sentient beings are right, and wrong actions are actions that result in harm to other sentient beings. Rights are most easily understood when they're thought of apophatically or in the opposite way. This helps us understand what a right is because it is an action that doesn't cause harm to others. Apophasis. For example, using process of elimination, rights can be understood by saying A, B, D, and E are immoral actions. He should not choose those actions. And A, B, D, and E are marked with X, but C is marked with the check mark. So by eliminating the other options, the correct option must be C. And that's how we should think of, and otherwise we have to choose the ones that are not wrong, is the best way to think of it. There's really only a couple things we cannot do, or at least we are not allowed to do without violating natural law, but there is an infinite number of possibilities we can do that are in alignment with natural law. But the best way to think of whether something's right or wrong is to decide if it's wrong, and if it isn't wrong, then we can do it. And if it is wrong, we can't do it. Don't think about, it's more important to understand what's wrong than what is right, essentially. What is against natural law than what is for natural law. Natural law wrongdoings include harmful actions such as murder, assault, theft, trespassing, and threatening others with violence. These are wrongdoings. Natural law transgressions. A living being or the property, what they own, must be harmed for it to violate natural law. Any action that doesn't cause harm is a right. In other words, no victim, no crime. Knowing rights. Natural law is always true no matter what anyone says. This means that a wrong can't be turned into a right or a right into a wrong. People can believe that it can be done, but this is not true. Most people believe that it's possible off the government to grant certain people rights and take others people's rights away. Knowing rights. Best way to understand knowing rights is to imagine two people interacting with each other, as if they were the only two people in the world, for example. Taxation is the claim that a group of people called government can violently take money from you. If you're not paying taxes, you can be hurt or thrown into jail. People will always say it's necessary and it's to help the community for the common good. But if slavery is stealing 100% of what someone makes, then at what percentage is it no longer slavery? Nobody has the right to steal from you, and no amount of people can make it into a moral right. It doesn't matter what taxes go either. It is still immoral. In other words, taxation is theft. It is against natural law and evil. Prohibition is the claim that a group of people government can violently stop you from putting something in your body. If you put something into you that's illegal, you're hurt or thrown in jail. If someone says you can't put something into you and they violently force you to stop, then they're claiming to own you. That is slavery. Many people will say it helps the community. Nobody has the right to violently prevent you from putting something into you, and no amount of people can make it into a moral action. It is against natural law and evil. Licenses and permits is the claim that a group of people called government can violently stop you from doing something nonviolent. If you want to do something that is legal, you're hurt or thrown in jail. If someone says you can't do a certain right and violently forces you to stop, then they decide what is the right action or wrong action. That is slavery. Many will say that helps the community or is for the common good, but nobody has the right to violently prevent you from doing it right, and no amount of people can make it into a moral action. It is against natural law and evil. Force versus violence. Force is the ability to do work and cause physical change. It is also energy and strength. However, violence is the immoral initiation of physical force to threaten, compel, or restrain. Force is an action which is moral because it doesn't violate other people's rights. Violence is threatening action which is not moral because it violates other people's rights. Force is an action which a person always has the right to do, including defense against violence, or self-defense. Violence are action which one never has the right to do. Human beings have the right to defend themselves from violence with physical defensive force. A person who has violence done to them has the right to stop the person from continuing to do it with any force, even lethal if it is necessary. Why does violence become right and moral when government does it? This is a real question we should be asking. There are two pillars of enlightenment. First is sacred feminine, or the sacred feminine principle, also called the non-aggression principle. This principle states, do not do violence to others. Do not initiate the use of physical force to threaten someone into doing something or harming someone. Sacred masculine principle is also called the self-defense principle. This principle states, beings have the right to use force to defend themselves from violence. And this is best represented as two columns, and one shows the masculine symbol of upward pointing triangle and the feminine symbol of the downward pointing triangle. And it shows also, this is the yin-yang symbol, which is another form of showing this as well. We have to have these energies within us. And this symbol also represents the masculine and feminine side of ourselves. Ownership. The main reason humanity is getting less and less free is because we do not understand the concept of rightful ownership and steal from others. Own something means an individual has 1. Rightful possession. In other words, they gain and hold property without using violence. They control their usage, such as the fact that they use the object's properties. In other words, it's not abandoned. And they are responsible. The person who's using the object or property is responsible for its maintenance and its caretaking. What is conscience? The knowledge of the difference between right and wrong according to natural law is conscience. Conscience is the free will choice of right action over wrong action and can be deliberately avoided once natural law knowledge has been learned. The free will choice of right action over wrong action can be done once natural law has been learned. The law of freedom. Freedom and morality are directly proportional. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. Another way of saying this law is that truth and morality in individuals is inversely proportional to the tyranny and slavery in that society. And I show this firstly by showing that less morality equals more tyranny. And I show the difference between right and wrong in a checkbox here, and it has a negative symbol. So the less morality equals more tyranny. And by tyranny, I show a police officer spraying pepper spray on innocent protesters. And more morality equals less tyranny. And I reverse the two images. And it's a seesaw kind of relationship as well as the best way to understand inversely proportional equations. Natural law versus man's law, which is also known as government. Natural law is based upon principles and truth, which is inherent to all living beings. Man's law is based on false beliefs and is created in the mind. Natural law is harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding. The man's law is obeyed because of fear of punishment. Natural law is universal. It exists and applies anywhere and everywhere in the universe. Man's law is different based on location and what politicians say is right. Natural law is eternal and immutable. It exists forever and cannot be changed. Man's law changes with time based on what politicians say is right and depends on location as well. So what does this mean for man's law? If a man-made law, and I'll put law in quotation marks because there isn't really a law like such as law of gravity or moral law, is in harmony with natural law, then it is unnecessary. Example would be the First Amendment, because every being has the right to say what they wish. If a man-made law is in opposition to natural law, then it is false and immoral. It can't be expected for people to obey the law, and it is not immoral to break that law. What this means for man's law is that it is immoral and unnecessary. There's also true equality under natural law. Everyone has the same rights. No one has any more or less rights than anyone else. Also, man doesn't make rights. Everyone is born with the same rights. No human being is able to grant extra rights or take away anyone else's rights. Authority in quotation marks, because it isn't true authority. An illusion that is based in violence. It is the false belief that some people are slave masters that have the right to be violent, and slaves have the moral obligation to obey the slave master. The belief in authority is the belief in slavery. Authority is the idea that man can become God and dictate law in what is right and wrong. I'm showing a picture of Capitol Hill. Religion is a form of mind control that is based on unchallenged false belief which holds back humanities and individuals. There is only one true divide that separates humanity into two distinct types of individuals. There are those who believe in authority, government, and slavery, and those who do not. In other words, there are statists and anarchists. A statist is someone who believes that people have the right to rule over others and believe that violence is justified when government does it. They are people who believe in the legitimacy of slavery. An anarchist is someone who believes that people do not have the right to rule over others, which is in fact true. They know that government is just slavery and violence and opposes natural law. Anarchy, well, what does anarchy mean? It means without rulers. Anarchy does not mean without rules. There will always be rules such as natural law. It simply means no rulers. And you can look this up in a Greek dictionary as well. Look at the prefix and suffix of an, without, and archon, meaning ruler. So no rulers. The control and slavery system is about limiting free will by destroying different possibilities. Nothing ever changes for the better in this system. Changes can only be made outside the system. You cannot change the system within. You have to change it from outside. True freedom includes infinite possibility, but also means the possibility of chaos. The possibility must be embraced without fear in order to be free. The fear of chaos. Chaos is simply a teacher. It teaches us through the apophatic process what not to do. The fear of the possibility of chaos is the fear of freedom. The fear of chaos is the death of the imagination. Imagination is the ability for humans to envision something different in life than what already exists. Imagination must exist to change what people experience. If the imagination is weakened or destroyed, total mind control, non-positive change can be made. By people's fear of the possibility of chaos, which would actually result in freedom, most people believe in authority and government actually believe and want to continue violence and slavery. Those who believe that authority is necessary and that it must continue have actually been tricked into believing that human slavery is necessary and must continue to prevent chaos. Violence and slavery cannot prevent chaos. Violence and slavery are chaos. And statism is the most dangerous religion in the world. And that's the picture it's showing here. Order followers. Following orders means doing what you're told without judging for yourself if the action you're ordered to do is right or wrong. And the best example of these are police officers and soldiers. They do what they're told, not what they think is right. Because if they did do exclusively what they think is right and not just simply what they were told, they would not have their job. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what you think is right or wrong. It's about doing what is actually right or wrong. Because some of them are convinced that what they're doing is right, but you have to do what is actually right. If individuals following orders, they cannot be exercising conscience. And exercising conscience means that one is choosing for themselves right action over wrong action. This is the result of following orders and is a person in chains. And also, I show in a graveyard because this is what it results to as well. It results in genocides. In other words, governments and militaries and police forces have murdered at least hundreds of millions of people throughout just really in the 20th century, the previous century. But throughout all of human history, it is astronomical. And that's what results when you follow orders unquestionably and don't think about what is right or wrong. Just following orders is never a valid excuse for immoral action. It is an attempt to absolve personal responsibility. It is not an acceptable excuse for wrong actions. Gandhi said, "You assist an evil system by obeying its order. An evil system never deserves allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking in the evil. A good person resists an evil system with his or her whole soul." Extremely powerful quote. Moral culpability. Who is to blame for the action which resulted in harm to other beings? In order to do this, he must have to find out whose fault it was. Who is more to blame, the order giver or order follower? And the order givers, such as politicians, such as Obama, George Bush, but there's many others, such as military generals, etc. They'll say, my actions didn't cause that. And the soldiers and, police officers, etc. will say, my actions didn't cause that harm. But who's more to blame? They are both to blame, ultimately. But who is more to blame is the real question. And it is the order followers. The order follower is always more to blame than the order giver because the order follower is the one who actually performed the action and did physical harm to someone. It is never virtue of a moral human being. Order followers are responsible for every form of slavery and violence that has existed on this earth, at least in massive scales. More people have been murdered by tyrannical governments, militaries, and police officers than private criminals throughout history. And that's a fact. Responsibility versus absolving responsibility. An individual's personal responsibility to choose right action over wrong action is always their own. You can't absolve your actions to someone else. Individuals are always responsible for action. In other words, no cop-outs, as they say. Accept responsibility for yourself and your actions, your thoughts, and words. You alone make choices. You alone are answerable to the consequences of your behavior. The excuse that your boss required it, the establishment expected it, holds no truth or justification. What is the point of having principles if you allow others to dictate your behavior? At the end of the day, you will judge your performance and the contribution you have made to creation. It will not be based on what another expect of you or what you did because you felt trapped. Most believe that you can hand over your right to defend themselves to individuals or groups. It is always your right to defend yourself from violence, and it cannot be given away. Responsibility is also known in other words as the ability to respond. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither and will lose both. Ben Franklin. Self-respect versus self-loathing. Self-loathing is hating yourself and causes people to abdicate, in other words, to give up to others their own personal responsibility to exercise conscience and to fall into order following. It is not possible for an order follower to truly love themselves. Self-loathing is created when an earlier childhood trauma has been suppressed into the subconscious mind instead of being diagnosed and healed. It can create the feeling of worthlessness and not feeling worthy. Self-respect is required. Respect means to look at again. We must look at ourselves again. Only self-respect can heal self-loathing and lead order followers to higher consciousness and to make them stop being order followers. You have to ask yourself, are we a moral person? The lost word is a concept of esoteric meaning, hidden and secret Freemasonry, which represents a state of consciousness that has been largely lost. In order to speak the lost word, a person must have a balance between the left and right brain hemispheres. They understand and respect the self and natural law. When a human being is enlightened by knowing natural law, they are able to speak the lost word, which is no. No is the word of all power. Only when we say no to those who use violence against us do we reclaim all of our rights. Sadly, few have the knowledge, care, and courage to do this. This is why the word is known as the lost word. Those who don't know won't say no. That's another common saying. And you should know your rights, so you will say no when people are trying to take them away. Teaching natural law to others is also known as the great work. People ask, will a shift happen in consciousness? And it is required in large numbers in order for humanity as a whole to become free. This great change is not automatic. It may not happen at all. In fact, it is possible if we use our will to learn truth and teach it to others. This requires a huge amount of time, effort, and persistence. Quantum shift requirements. Quantum means amount. In order to have a society that is free and prosperous and harmonious and peaceful, there has to be a certain amount of people doing the great work of helping others to know the truth. Then what is ultimately the great work? The true great work can only be performed after one knows natural law and harmonizes with it. True great work is influence others. It is to help them realize that authority and government is slavery and that they are moral for supporting it. In short, get people to abandon their false and dogmatic beliefs, which holds their mind back from stopping them learning natural law and truth. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. Carl Jung. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. That is the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Thomas Jefferson. In every declining civilization, there is a small remnant of people who adhere to the right against the wrong, and who recognize the difference between good and evil, and who will take an active stand for the former and against the latter, who can stand and think and discern, who will courageously take a stand against the political, social, moral, and spiritual decay of their day. Douglas McAlvany. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to this earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword, for I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law and against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be made members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father, mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses life for my sake will find it. Jesus in Matthew 10:34-39. And what Jesus is saying here is that spreading the true great work may cause division even within our own families and our own friends. But ultimately, those who don't will not find life and they will lose it. But those who do will experience true life and they will experience what life is really all about. And this is what the battle is really against. It is against egos hardened into negative knowledge, emotional mind control, and fear of freedom. In other words, our inner demons. Negative knowledge is knowing things that are not true, which is not really even knowledge. This is not true knowledge. The greatest enemy may not be ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. So people who think that they know everything don't really know anything, oftentimes, not always. If it's unpleasant, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it, and I certainly don't want to tell others about it. I'll just ignore it, and it will go the other way. This is not true. And I'm showing the picture of a monkey, they say, speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. It has another form of emotional mind control. A news anchor will say something like falsehood, and they'll say 2 + 2 = 5. That's just an example. They could say something like there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, for example. And people believe it because it is presented well, and they say soft, smoothing tones, and they have, makeup on and they dress well, but then someone says and screaming in their face 2 plus 2 equals 4, but then they'll say, well, this person said it in an angry way, then it's not true. That's not how truth actually works. No matter what people say, it's not about how they say it, it's about what they say that determines whether it's true or not. The truth is belligerent. Truth is, by its very nature, at war with the forces of falsehood and deceit. And this is by Bertolt Brecht. And, this is why people don't want to hear the truth, or they get mean and angry and stuff, because our world has so much deceit in it and falsehoods. People have so many false beliefs, so this is why people act emotional to them. This will actually become less as more people accept the truth, and if we spread the truth, this will not happen as much. We literally believe that we are in the right to ignore a message of truth, and if the measure is somehow distasteful to us. I would argue that this is a symptom of total madness, unknown. What does the fear of freedom come from? It comes from a refusal to own personal responsibility, self-loathing due to lack of self-respect, and an abandonment issue. Know the real enemy. This is not it, and it shows a picture of people at Bohemian Club, which is a secret society which does many evil things in secret and commits ceremonies that are quite questionable. And, people say that politicians are the real enemy and, the corporations, whatever. That is not the real enemy. It is an enemy, for sure. It is definitely an enemy of humanity. But the real enemy is the sleeping masses, the people who are unaware. Because they make up the majority of people, and the majority of people make up the majority of actions done in the world, and the majority of actions leads to what we experience in our reality. So the real enemy is ignorance, people, and nescient people. So we have to educate others and try to get them to want to accept the truth. Service to truth. Truth can never be destroyed. Humanity can be destroyed by not defending truth as their defenders. It is possible for us to co-create a positive outcome, but this can only be done if we care enough to learn the truth for ourselves and have the courage to speak it to others. The liberties of our country are worth defending at all hazards. It is our duty to bring them against all attacks. It would mark an everlasting infamy on the present generation if we should suffer them to be wrested from us by violence without a struggle, or to be cheated out of them by artifices of designing men. So we should fight for our freedom and stand up for our rights, even if we might lose. And we should also fight against the falsehoods of the enemies who only thing they care about is power, and we should fight against the falsehood of manipulators. If you love wealth greater than liberty, the tranquility of servitude greater than the animated contest for freedom, go home from us in peace. We seek not your counsel nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feeds you. May your chains sit lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are a countryman. We are the vehicle of truth in the world. It is our shared responsibility to help awaken others by continuously speaking the truth, even if it makes us feel burdened, even if it makes all those around us feel uncomfortable. These are the times that tribesmen soul. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in time of crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he who stands by it now deserves the love and thank of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this constitution with us. At the heart of the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Thomas Paine. Absolutely phenomenal quote. And what he's saying is, this was spoken during the revolutionary times, and he was saying that what they were going through was really a test and challenge. And in times of such terrible crisis, people who only stood up because it was easy will stop standing up, or when it was during the good times of the revolution, they will stop doing so when it becomes disadvantageous for them to do so. But those who stand for the truth at all times deserves the love and thank of every man and woman. Tyranny is not easily destroyed, yet we should understand that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. There is only 2 mistakes one can ever make on the path to truth: not starting and not going all the way. The Dark Ages still reign over all humanity, and the depth and persistence of this domination are only now becoming clear. This Dark Age prison has no steel bars, chains, or locks. Instead, it is locked by misorientation and built on misinformation. Caught up in a plethora of conditioned reflexes and driven by the human ego, both the warden and prisoner attempt merely to compete with God. All are intractably skeptical of what they do not understand. We are powerfully imprisoned in these dark ages simply by the terms in which we have been conditioned to think. R. Buckminster Fuller. The apocalypse, or in other words, revealing. It actually means to reveal. It doesn't mean to destroy. Maybe destroying illusions anyways, but not physical objects or the world. It is also known as de-occulting, in other words, making things that were secret no longer secret and bringing them into the knowledge of all humanity. We must apologize. An apology means to go away from the word or to give back the word. This is what humanity must do for its wrongdoings and obey natural law. This happens when we open our minds and hearts to truth and we say no to evil. We must admit our wrongdoings and move on to rightful action. In other words, to make amends. God, not man, is the Logos, the author of law. Humanity must listen to God's word, truth, and align its behavior to God's law, natural law. And I'm not using this in a religious sense. I'm just saying we must obey natural law and the truth. And this is a picture showing by Alex Gray, and it shows two worlds we can choose from. We can choose the world on the left, which is the world that shows peace and animals and, a clean environment, and we're all cooperating with each other and we're spiritually awakened. And on the right, it shows fire, pollution, war, destruction, and other horrific things. So in order to get the left side, the peaceful side, we have to live according to natural law, and this leads to freedom, peace, wealth, survival, and growth. Living in opposition to natural law leads to control, enslavement, war, decay, and extinction. A free people claim their rights as derived from the laws of nature, and not as the gift of their magistrates. By Thomas Jefferson. The natural law of man is to be free from any superior power on earth, and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the laws of nature for his rule. John Locke. Nature, to be commanded, must first be obeyed. Francis Bacon. What he means by this is that if we wish to, control ourselves and to control the world, and, to truly control the world, not in like a dominating sense, but in order to have control of our lives and to get humanity to where we really want to go, we have to obey natural law. The only way we can get what we truly want done for ourselves and humanity is to obey natural law, because natural law cannot be disobeyed without the consequences. There is the law that man should love his neighbor as himself. In a few hundred years, it should be as natural as mankind, as breathing or walking upright. But if he does not learn it, he must perish. And natural law is the key to the prison of our planet. So please watch Mark Cassio's natural law presentation for more in-depth analysis, which can be found at the link which I'll have in the description. Thank you for watching if you're on YouTube, or listening if you're on the podcast. Email me at realnextlevelthinking@protonmail.com, or on Twitter, Facebook, or mine's Next Level Thinking page if you wish to be interviewed on the podcast or for comments and questions. And thank you.